I'm Garrow Kedigian, a New Yorker turned Francophile, so in love with the city of love that I just decided to purchase a pied-à-terre in the heart of Paris. Welcome to Chateau Garrow. It's located in an old building, and the apartment hasn't been touched since the 1970s. It's a complete gem, but it needs some major TLC. So the kitchen, out of all the rooms in this apartment, was actually the scariest space of all. I've invited Homeworthy to join me as I renovate it from top to bottom over the next few months. It won't be easy, but I'm determined to make her absolutely fabulous again. Hopefully, the board is going to approve it. We'll see. I hope you can come along for an inside look into this exciting journey.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey Homeworthy fans, New York City-based interior designer Garrow Kedigian here. Welcome to my apartment in Paris, Chateau Garrow 2.0. Last time, you guys joined me in the shopping expedition where I was picking some fabrics and some fabulous things for my new place. But here we are on site today, and the construction is full on. And I'm meeting with my contractor and my curtain lady, and then I'm gonna give you a quick little masterclass on how I go about doing the design work for my own apartment. Oh, I think I hear my contractor now. Let's go greet him. Bonjour, Edouard. How are you? Entrez, come on in.
Thank you.
So we're here in the living room. This is my contractor, Edouard Curt. He's fabulous. If you guys remember, he helped me work on my apartment, my previous apartment. He did a great job, and he's very, very technically savvy, and he knows how to read plans. So let's get to it. So when you're working on any project, it is very important that you have a thorough set of plans. That really is the key to a successful renovation. You know, a contractor like Edouard has to have a definitive set of drawings that really illustrates the ideas of what you want. That way he can execute it perfectly. So we're here today and we're actually selecting a few moldings. This is one of my favorite parts of the interior design work. So these dramatic, fabulous plaster crown moldings. Look at this. Mais ça c'est extraordinaire, no? J'aime beaucoup. So Edouard has a great plasterer who was here the other day, and he sent me over these wonderful plaster moldings. If you remember, I had them in my old apartment. So what we're going to do is going to walk through room by room, take a few measurements. There are some existing crown moldings in the space, which of course I'm going to keep, such as the crown molding in this room, which is extraordinary. I love the crown molding in here. But unfortunately, some other rooms, the crown molding was lost. And then that's a problem. So we're going to have to put new crown moldings in. So let's come on through. We're going to look at some of the things that he's accomplished so far. C'est ça, c'est extraordinaire, Edouard.
Ah oui.
C'est vraiment, ça fait une grande différence. So the doorway opening here was actually very low, and we took the opportunity to raise it up higher. And this is actually a huge trick in interior design. When you have huge ceiling heights, it's critical to raise the opening height so that you can actually appreciate the height of the ceiling when you walk through from one room to the next. It made a huge difference. In fact, you can see the opening to the library that they haven't raised yet, and you get the effect of this opening, which is really, really huge, versus one that hasn't been raised yet. The contrast is amazing. My favorite part in design are what I call happy accidents. So I'm going to let you in on a big secret. It's always important to have your set of plans and your drawings, you know, because then you have the direction to give the contractor. But at the same time, you have to leave an open mind. So as you're working on your apartment, sometimes some happy accidents happen. So in this room, this is the dining room. And I originally wanted to outfit the room with wall paneling all the way around, which would be fabulous. But last week, I was shopping at the flea markets, and I came across these pilasters. Take a look at these. Ils sont vraiment extraordinaires, n'est-ce pas? Magnifique, oui. So these pilasters I found actually in one of the booths at the flea market. There were 9 of them. And I immediately grabbed my measuring tape. Measuring tape is your best friend in design. And of course, I measured them, and I decided that in this room, on va faire les pilastres dans les coins. You know, in the corners of the room, I'm going to actually include, instead of these small panels that I had designed on the corners of the rooms, I'm going to put these 8 pilasters all the way around the perimeter of the room. I think it's just going to give the room just the right amount of architecture that the space needs. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait. So I want to get the pilasters to actually touch the crown molding at the top, which is perfect. And that means that the pilasters are actually not as tall as the room, which is great. So I'm going to build these plinths underneath. Edouard's going to build these square plinths that are going to help marry the columns to the room. It's going to be really great. Can't wait. Also, one of the ideas is that we want to keep the pilasters in their raw, configured state because they look so natural. Quand j'ai acheté ça, j'ai pensé que c'était de pierre, non? C'était comme la...
C'est une très jolie bâtisse.
Oui.
C'est une vieille peinture qui
Oui, c'est vraiment spécial.
en plâtre.
So even though they're a little dirty, I think if we clean them up a bit, I really don't want to paint them. I think I want to just sort of restore them to the existing finish as closely as possible. It really looks like they could have been original to the space. One of the best things in design for me is when people walk into the room and look at the designer and ask them, was that always there? It's a true testament to good design when something is a bit of a trick. Wow. Magnifique, no? N'est-ce pas? I love it. It's amazing. So working in France is always a bit of a challenge. Number one, there's of course the challenge of the centimeters to inches. Also, one of the biggest challenges, of course, is working from New York. Thankfully, I get up really early in the morning because they're 6 hours ahead of us. So I get up really early and then I start getting emails from Edouard on all these questions. And I'm like, uh-oh, I'm not in my mindset to answer all these questions yet. So the 6-hour time difference and the language barrier, it's a little bit of a challenge. A lot of people ask me why I had done a smaller apartment previously and now I'm working on a bigger apartment. It's really because I didn't know how I was going to be able to work in Paris. And thankfully, I was able to find a great contractor, Edouard. Il est excellent. J'aime beaucoup travailler avec vous. C'est plaisir. So once you make all your contacts and you know your contractor and you can actually lean on him for some design decisions, it's great because sometimes I'll be like, I really need to see that, but I'll leave it up to you. What do you think? And I love that he has a really good eye for design. So that's actually a very important thing in design is that you have a good relationship with your contractor. That's very important. That's the key to a successful project, no? N'est-ce pas?
J'adore travailler avec Garrow.
Yes.
Son design éveille mon sens de l'architecture. On a plusieurs clients qui sont tous très agréables. Et c'est vrai que pour moi c'est assez différent parce que j'ai travaillé sur beaucoup de chantiers de style scandinave. Et là on a un vrai style à l'ancienne, dans le respect des traditions, des vieux artisans. Et c'est très enrichissant de travailler aux côtés de Garrow.
Ouais, good. Merveille. He thinks he enjoys working with me, which is wonderful. So he loves working with me, which is great. I love working with you too. And we have a few projects going on in Paris right now, and we make the rounds whenever we meet each other. We go to different job sites. And he's very technical, which is what I love. I'm very technical. I love to be very detail-oriented. And all of you that follow me on Instagram know that I am a traditionalist. Even though I use bold color, I love my traditional details, the crown moldings, and all the moldings everywhere. So there's a little bit of a departure from what he's used to doing. So it's a little bit of a learning experience for him too, but it's fun. We make it fun. One of the things you guys might remember about the apartment was that there was a wooden mantle in the library. And I wasn't quite sure I wanted to keep the mantle. So we went back and forth un peu, on discutait pour le cheminée, je ne sais pas ce que je veux, laisser le boiserie ou avoir un nouveau. Mais I found a fabulous mantle in the Paris flea markets this weekend. Vous avez des images? Of course, in any design project, you have to break out your measuring tape. I keep a measuring tape in my pocket all the time. So what I love about it is that it reminds me of the fireplace mantle that was in the living room, the original one, the white one that we have protected. It's a match, no? Et le vendeur, the vendor that I bought it from said it is Pompadour, the style is Pompadour, and that this period of building would have that kind of mantle. So I'm actually happy, bringing in a piece that would have been original, kind of original,
We can have a check on the measure.
Yes, exact. Oui. Oh, alors c'est pas très différent.
J'hésite un petit peu entre couper ou casser l'ensemble.
Ok, yeah.
Ici, sur le socle, on veut bien le faire à niveau, at the same level.
Certainement, oui, absolument. There was a brick hearth on the floor in front of the old fireplace. And I would really love to have it flush. Several times, actually, when I stay here this summer, I kick my toe on this thing. J'ai brisé mon pied quelquefois. Ça va mettre mieux, je pense.
Et peut-être plus compact, parce que c'est un petit peu grand.
Oui, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Est-ce qu'il y a une pierre qui irait au sol?
Ah, peut-être, oui.
Ouais,
Je vais demander, yeah, c'est bon dire. Mais j'aime beaucoup la plaque en arrière. It comes with this fabulous original, I guess it's a fire screen on the back panel.
J'ai laissé du bois pour faire le feu.
Ah oui, excellent. So the challenge to using a fireplace, a different fireplace from what was there originally, is really fitting it to the opening. So again, I walk around with my measuring tape everywhere, and of course I measured it, and I wasn't really 100%, so I came back and I said, Edouard, before I buy this mantle, I really need you to take a look at this. This is sort of an odd build out. It's quite deep. Thankfully, the new mantle is pretty deep. But one of the things we're going to do is we're going to take out this brick hearth. It's not original. It was put in probably sometime in the 1970s. The brick actually doesn't match the fire brick on the inside, so I know it's not original. And the advantage will be to build a new hearth, probably in stone, maybe a stone to match the fireplace mantle, and the floor will be flush to it, which is great. So we're looking forward to seeing this mantle come together. So keep a lookout for it in the next episode coming up.
Ok, nous allons pouvoir ajuster la pose de la cheminée pour qu'elle soit bien centrée dans la largeur de la bibliothèque.
Parfait. Yeah, I love that. So Edouard has an excellent idea where he's going to, because the fireplace mantle is 5 centimeters narrower than the original one, he's going to shave off a little bit of the brick from one side, and it's going to help us center the fireplace mantle actually on the library space. So the next part of our tour actually goes off of the concept of trying to center the fireplace on the library. So the library space originally had these closets that were built into the room. I think I explained this when we did our initial tour. And you guys might have seen on Instagram where I did a little sketch to show you the concept of how I'm going to build this wall. So right now, this is all completely removed. The wall was not structural, and we're able to reposition the wall. There were closets that were built into the library, and the library was unusually narrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to reestablish the original wall line. And originally I wanted to do a pair of doors between the library and the bedroom hallway. But I was in the Paris flea markets last week, and look what I found. Wow! Aren't these amazing? So I found a pair of these fabulous columns. They're Corinthian capitals, similar to the pilasters actually that we're using in the dining room. So I really love the language between these columns and the pilasters in the dining room. It's all sort of coming together beautifully. I'd like to have a paint break between the library and the bedroom hallway, so this is the perfect detail. I'm the column on the right, and he's the column on the left. But look how great the opening. Ça va être très bon, l'ouverture, n'est-ce pas? Yeah. So the new door will be centered on this pair of columns, and it'll be centered on the window that's opposite. It's going to be perfection. Can't wait. Ça va être très bon. Oui. So initially, I was a little disappointed to find that there was nothing underneath the wall-to-wall carpeting in this library room. If you remember, underneath this floor, I was hoping to find the original parquet, but it wasn't there, unfortunately. But it actually gives us the opportunity to actually position these columns very securely to the floor, which is great. Now, part of the design of this space is actually to bring in some dramatic architecture. So the library space originally would have been 2 rooms. Somebody at some point took out the wall between the 2 spaces. So the room actually has a grandeur about it. It's much more grand than a lot of other rooms in Paris. So I wanted to pick a fabulous crown molding, and here it is. It is absolutely stunning. Cette moulure-là, c'est vraiment spécial, non? C'est très joli. It's massive. C'est très grand. Et c'est très lourd. Oh my God. Je ne sais pas comment est-ce qu'on va fixer ça sur...
fabrique cette corniche lui-même.
Ouais,
Le plâtrier fabrique cette corniche lui-même et il vient positionner ces éléments
Parfaitement.
plus ou moins à droite ou gauche pour faire une répartition parfaitement égale
Yeah.
et que ça soit joli au niveau des
Yeah.
coins. Et c'est pas comme une corniche qu'on vient couper et dans ce cas-là,
Ouais,
il y a
oh,
deux
ouais,
médaillons
yeah.
collés. Voilà, c'est très important.
So this is a molding that we use in my old apartment on Notre-Dame de Lorette, in the old apartment, and it was a fabulous crown molding. It has really great scale. And Edouard is explaining to me that you're going to measure the length of the wall, and they're going to adjust the dental details so that there's nothing that's cut at a strange angle. So you're going to lay them out perfectly. So the room will look like it was originally made this way, originally made with this molding. It's going to be fabulous. Wow, I love it. It's a wow. I'm telling you, I love to use oversized scale moldings. Architecture is so important, especially when you have ceiling heights like this. You really need to pick the molding that has the right personality, the right scale, and this is definitely going to do it. We were able to get 18 inches on this ceiling. It was dropped by 18 inches, and I'm fighting very hard to keep the ceiling as high as possible. So, originalement, vous voudrez faire a faux plafond.
It's better for finishing.
He wanted to do a false dropped ceiling in here so it's better. But I said, no. I want the ceiling to be as high as possible. That's actually what we really, really covet in any interior, to keep the ceilings as high as possible. So it'll affect my high gloss finish un peu. Le lac, ça va être un peu, you know.
Peut-être un peu moins parfait.
Oui, that's fine. Yeah, I would rather give up the precious quality of the high gloss paint for ceiling height. It will still be excellent. You know, only a contractor will know the difference between the false ceiling and the true ceiling height. So the best part of working with a contractor like Edouard in Paris is that he's so well connected, he's so well experienced working with other designers in the city. So he makes introductions to people like Natalie. Bonjour Natalie, ça va? Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Bienvenue, bienvenue. Edouard, thank you so much for making the introduction. So Natalie is a fabulous curtain vendor, upholstery workroom. She works all over Paris, and Edouard made the introduction, and we've been working with her for a few projects, and it's fabulous, and we're going to work on my project now. Here we are in my living room, le salon, le plus spécial fenêtre dans l'appartement. The most special window for me in this whole apartment is this fabulous curved window that I have in the corner of my living room. So it's important to me to get the curtains just right, and Natalie is absolutely the person to help me do this. Alors, je veux que le tissu, ça reste sur le mur. I don't want the fabric to go too much into the glass. So Natalie was just explaining that I might have to replace the curtain rods that are here. Unfortunately, they're not long enough, so we might have to replace them.
Je pense que la tringle n'est pas assez grande pour vraiment laisser de la lumière le plus possible en fait, dans la pièce. Donc,
okay.
Il faut changer la tringle, l'allonger en fait des deux côtés.
Compris, oui.
Et pour que le refoulement en fait du tissu soit sur le mur et pas sur la vitre.
Parfait, parfait. So Natalie is explaining that to accomplish what I'm looking for, I'm going to have to replace the curtain rod, which is fine. I really want the fabric to stack more onto the wall and not into the glass, because this room gets amazing sunlight. If you could just see it on a bright sunny day, you would just appreciate what I'm trying to accomplish here. So, alors, Edouard, can you bring us the ladder, s'il vous plaît? I love the word for ladder in French. It's escabeau. It sounds like escargot, but it's, it's actually escabeau. On mange pas. We don't eat it. We don't eat it. Voilà. Fabulous. Wonderful. These are great curtains.
Yeah.
What do you think? These are Lulu Dike, actually, and I used these in my Kip Space show house in 2016. Those of you who might recall, I did the Napoleon Lounge in the Kip Space show house, and ironically, that we're 1 block away from Napoleon's tomb here, right by the Invalides. So it's very appropriate that we should use these curtains in this room.
Yes.
I love the yellow. You guys might remember that the color that I'm thinking of painting the living room is a bright turquoise. When we get to my masterclass, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I love the contrast between a yellow and a turquoise color, so this is going to be fabulous in this room. It's a beautiful strié pattern. Unfortunately, this fabric was discontinued many years ago. I used to use this all the time. I love this fabric. So I bought out all the remaining stock when I did my Kip Space Show House for this fabulous yellow. And I love this pleat. Vous voyez ce pleat-là? C'est le Brisbee. Le Brisbee, c'est ça, exactement. In Brisbee. C'est quoi en français?
En français, c'est une tête triple.
Ah oui, triple, yeah, triple pleated and pinched on the top. Triple pleated and pinched on the top. That's my preference, actually. When I worked for Mr. Hodgins, I worked for William Hodgins in Boston for 6 years when I first started out in this business, and all of his curtains were all pinch pleated on the top. He just loved how tailored they were. You know, it gives such a tailored look. It's just very nicely done. It's clean, it's more architectural, it's fabulous.
Les rayures gardent aussi cette hauteur.
Oui, exact, yeah. It really accentuates the stripes. When you have stripes actually make things look taller. That's why a lot of people wear stripes, it makes them look thinner. Alors, on a un grand challenge ici. We have a big challenge in this room, and Edouard's going to help us. The biggest challenge here is actually the curtain panels are actually not long enough because the ceiling heights in here are 10 million feet. So the great part is j'ai 8 panels. So I have 8 panels of this curtain, and so I have a lot of the fabric, and unfortunately these current panels are not long enough, but we're going to modify them by taking 8 panels and making 2. And I'm going to use yellow fabric, maybe not this one, maybe something that's a little bit closer to this if we can find something. Si on peut trouver quelque chose qui est plus
similaire.
Oui. Et on va mettre juste un band en dessous et then mettre
un troisième.
Exact, yeah,
Okay.
exact. Ça va être ça encore parce qu'on a 8 panneaux comme ça.
Okay.
Alors, je pense que je peux prendre 8 panneaux et faire 2 panneaux avec les 8,
Oui.
mais introduire juste un band. Yeah, exact. Et peut-être le band, ça va être sur le côté aussi.
Ah oui, très bien.
Oui,
Pour
comme un
encadrer,
détail.
en fait.
Oui,
Ouais,
encadré,
très bien.
exact.
Parfait.
So I'm thinking of using a contrasting, well, not really contrasting, but a yellow fabric that would go back to the yellow in the fabric and doing it as a trim piece. So I'll use it as a tape along the seam where the 2 panels are going to be sewn together and on the edging. Why not reuse your own curtain panels? I tell my clients that all the time. It's always fun to actually reinvent fabric that you have from a previous residence, or you had it in a different project. For instance, this was the Kip Space Show House that we only used for 1 month in the show house. So why not reuse this beautiful fabric? And I think the fabric is going to be absolutely perfect with what I'm thinking of for the wall color in this space. I'm thinking of a nice bright turquoise, and of course, Edouard is the master of the high gloss lacquered paint. So you have to imagine these walls are going to be delicious and shiny. And then contrasted with the yellow, it's just going to be perfect. On a sunny day, we get tons of light, natural light and sun into this room, so I love incorporating a sunny color, especially onto the curtain fabric. It's perfection.
J'ai apporté les échantillons
excellent.
pour les tringles. Donc
Parfait.
on peut
Est-ce qu'on peut
regarder.
voir? Yeah.
Ouais,
Oh,
allez,
excellent. Great.
justement.
She brought me some samples for the curtain rods. Last time I asked her if she can get me some bronze metal rods. So let's take a look. Let's see.
Alors, le premier.
Oh, c'est très beau. Yeah.
Ouais, je pense que.
Oh,
pardon.
nice. Oh, c'est très beau. Yeah, I like this.
Ça, c'est le premier.
Love it. Looks like
Il s'appelle
bronze.
comment?
Love it. S'appelle Epoxy Café.
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 Ouais, café.
How appropriate in France that you should use a curtain rod called café. N'est-ce pas?
Il est plus
Ça, c'est
brillant,
beau.
cacao.
Oui. Oui, oui, c'est très beau
plus
aussi.
lumineux,
Oui, j'aime ça aussi, mais je pense que j'aime le mat.
Le mat.
Le finish, le fini.
Ok.
I think I prefer the matte finish. I think it's nicer.
Ok.
Et est-ce qu'il y a des rideaux qui,
Les anneaux?
un peu plus grands,
Oui.
le diamètre?
Oui,
Ouais.
oui, parce qu'il existe donc soit la taille, the size 20,
Yeah.
28,
Yeah.
35.
And this is 20? No, this is
yes,
20
25,
millimeters? 25?
Yes, I think.
I would go a little bit more. I think I would go a little thicker. I
Right,
like
35,
yeah.
perhaps you
Okay.
want.
Yeah.
And 50, it's possible.
50 is a little big, I think, maybe. But why don't you get samples of both?
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
look,
yeah.
we'll look. But I like this color,
possible.
cette couleur-là. So cafe, perfect. Next, we're gonna go into the dining room, the salle à manger. Come on through. So, on a trouvé les pilastres au marché aux puces. I found these amazing pilasters at the flea market, which, you know, I just reviewed with my contractor. And we're going to embellish this room with 8 of the pilasters all around the perimeter. So pour vous, the concern is really at the window. So we have 2 pilasters that are going to flank this window. And if you remember, vous croyez que je voudrais avoir un valance. I was designing a beautiful valance to go.
Comme à Venise.
Oui, n'est-ce pas? C'est exactement. It's exactement Venice. Yeah, it's at the Cipriani actually. It was the Hotel Cipriani. I saw a fabulous valance in the window of my hotel room. I took a picture of it years ago, and I said one day I'm going to use it. And voila, come and take a look. I have changed a little bit of the peak on the bottom. I want to make it a little bit softer. But I think this is going to be very dramatic on this window. So I have fabric that I want to reuse here as well. It's the Missoni fabric. I love that fabric. I bought it many years ago, and I used it in my dining room at the old apartment. And thankfully, in the old apartment, we had 2 windows and 4 panels, and this is a much taller window, but I have 4 panels to do 1 window, so it should work. So this is the color of the walls that I'm proposing in here. It's a beautiful, rich mustardy color, one of my favorites actually. Here's a great trick actually. When you have a sun-filled room, it's always nice to use a sunny color because it will augment the natural light coming into the space. So that's really the strategy here. These curtains are some of my favorites. Again, previously had added to the bottom of these when I used them at the old apartment, and we might have to add to them again. Mais we have 4 panels. On a 4 panels.
Perfect.
Perfect. And on va utiliser.
necessary.
Ouais, ouais. Excellent. Love it. Can't wait. Alors, merci bien de venir.
Au revoir, Garou.
Merci bien de venir.
Merci, Garou.
Excellent.
À bientôt.
J'espère que ça va être fini la semaine prochaine. They're going to finish next week, of course. Bon, merci bien. Merci bien. À bientôt. À bientôt. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Oui. As an architect, it's one of the most important things for me to make sure you have your plans worked out in advance of starting your design work. In fact, it's actually the generator of your design work to have a proper furniture plan, a proper layout plan. I'm trained as an architect, so it comes naturally to me and actually helps me very much when I do the beginning of any project. So I always sit down first and do a furniture plan, and I come up with my elevations and my details, and that really becomes the generator for my design work, and that's a very important part of how I work. So generally, my layout plan is where I begin, and then I always have a concept in my head of where I want to begin in a room such as the living room. But I always tell everybody it is critical to have a holistic approach to design. You cannot design just one room at a time. You have to think about the whole apartment as a symbiotic creature. It all has to come together in a way that there's a symbiotic relationship between your color palettes room to room. So in this room, when I first saw this beautiful living room, it was full of sun, lots of sunlight, and I wanted to paint it a bright turquoisey blue color because blues are some of my favorite colors. The darker blues tend to not do as well in sun-filled spaces, so I wanted to go this time with a more turquoisey blue. And in contrast, I'm going to paint the ceiling this bright orangey color. So people often ask me on Instagram what color a certain room is, and it's hard to explain to them that I would be doing them a disservice by telling them what the specific color is for a specific room that they've seen, because the important part of designing a color for your space is to actually study a range of a color palette. So if you know you like a blue turquoise color, such as I do for this room, you really have to go out and find a range of the tonalities and look at them in your space. The room is what tells you what the best color is for painting it. Really, it's true, and it's something that people often miss the mark on. So it's great if you're inspired by a color that you want to use, but you have to understand that studying that color on site in your space is critical. So I started with my living room. I studied the various different colors of turquoise. I'm actually going to mix a few colors together, so when we get further along in this process, we're going to do that with a painter. But generally, I tell people that it is very important also to consider colors different times of the day. So when you come into your living room and it's this beautiful sunny day, it's great. You'll be able to judge the color in the sun. But you forget that sometimes, you're out of the apartment during the day most of the time. You're running around, working, whatever, and you're in the apartment at night. So it's critical to also see the colors at night. It's critical also to study the colors when it's gray out, when it's, you want to make sure you don't pick a color that's gonna make the room feel too dreary. That's actually, you run the risk with blues sometimes to make a room feel too dreary. That's why I don't like gray. But anyway, what I always start with is a range of colors, and I've seen what I like. I've taken away the ones that didn't work for me. And then, of course, I start to think about the sequence of the space. This apartment has beautiful hierarchy of space. You go from the living room right into the dining room, and then there's an enfilade from the living room to the dining room and then to the library. So that whole color palette really needs to be thought through in terms of a sequence of space. Originally, I was thinking of painting the dining room the turquoise color, but when I started coming to the apartment and appreciating it for what it did in terms of its natural light, I decided the room that needed to be the turquoise was the living room, because the dining room is the room that has the most sun-filled sunlight. So I'm going to paint the walls of the dining room this brilliant, beautiful sunshine. If you guys remember my Carlisle apartment in New York, I painted it a similar color. This is a little bit different. It's a little different, it's a little bit deeper, but again, I studied the color tones and the palette on site ad nauseum. So it's important to understand that your colors need to have a symbiotic relationship. So in my blue turquoisey room, the ceiling of the living room is actually going to be this beautiful sort of mustardy yellow color. It's different from the color from the dining room. It's always important not to be matchy-matchy. It's better to use colors that are harmonious together and that they become layered. If you actually do a mismatch, it's actually counterintuitive, because actually when you do a color palette, it's often better to pick a color that's close, that works beautifully with the other yellow color, but it's actually not exactly the same. There will be a common thread, of course. They're not touching each other, so this ceiling will sit, apart from this wall. They're not exactly the same color, but they talk to each other. Then, of course, the room off the dining room will be the library. So the library is inspired by me, by a beautiful room that I saw done by a French designer, Henri Samuel. It was actually his own personal dining room. It was the most beautiful tone of a terracotta red. I love red rooms. Some people don't, and that's fine. If you don't like a red room, you don't have to do a red room, but I personally love them. I love the energy that that red exudes. It has such great pulse to it, and I love to work in a red room actually. So you'll remember that my library in New York is actually also red, but it's a different red. So again, I had to study all the reds that I wanted, and I tried to approximate that beautiful living room that inspired me as a young designer by Henri Samuel. It was his own personal living room, and it was mixed with a taupey tone in the trim, which is actually works perfectly with what I'm trying to do here, because this then connects back to my yellow walls in my dining room and to my sort of taupey mustardy ceiling of the living room. So it's always important when you do a design is to keep in mind that you have a holistic, thought given to all the rooms. Even if you wanted to do one room at a time, that's fine, but you should have an overall plan. And an overall plan is the most important detail in any successful design. I had seen a carpet once at auction, and I wanted to buy for a client's apartment. It was a beautiful French 40s carpet that really inspired me. Unfortunately, they never bought it, but I've always had it in my head, and when I came to design my apartment here in Paris, the curved window wall was really the generator for my inspiration. I said, what can I do with this? And I really thought about that carpet that had a dramatic border to it. So I approached my carpet vendor, and we came up with this design, and I think it looks great. And he made me a strike-off sample. So when you're doing a custom room like this, it's always critical to study your carpet and have a custom strike-off made. It has the exact color that I picked. The ground is perfection. I love it, and it relates beautifully back to my color palette for the rest of the room. And also I asked the carpet vendor to actually send me a full-size template. And full-size templates always help me because I like to see the scale and the size of something in the room. It became evident to me when I brought it into the space that I felt like the medallion in the center of the carpet is a little small, which is kind of, sort of a funny thing to realize, because on the paper, when they did get the rendering, I thought the medallion looked too big. So when we made the sample, I decided I want to make the medallion actually bigger. So it's very important to study these different scales and study the different sizes within your space. That's critical. For instance, I have this fabulous curved banquette template that I made. This is for the sofa. In the window area, I think you guys might remember last time we were talking about this. So I like to have my upholstery pieces made and fitted custom to the rooms. Sometimes it's critical to break out a measuring tape and really scale something and size it exactly to the space. This banquette fits perfectly between the casing moldings, and it follows the curvature of the window. So I'll actually take this banquette that I made, and I will send it along to the upholstery workroom, and they will use this as the template for the sofa. I think we're almost there. I can't wait. Thank you, Homeworthy, for joining me on this fabulous day where we met the contractor, the curtain lady, and all the beautiful people helping me see my design to fruition. I'm so excited to share with you the next steps, so keep an eye out. Coming up next.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.